Hi guys, right, today I'm going to be showing you how I deal with small areas of lacquer peel like this. First of all, here's what I'm going to be using in terms of tools and materials. Sandpaper, soapy water, panel wipe, masking tape, masking paper, a heat gun, aerosol clear lacquer, a machine polisher, microfiber cloths, and polish and an applicator. Okay, the first thing to deal with is this sort of raised edge where the lacquer is peeling away still. You can feel it with your fingers, it's very clear. To do that, we start by lubricating the panel with some soapy water, either out of a bucket or in a spray bottle like I've got here. Then we start sanding it with increasing grades of sandpaper. In this case I started at 600 grit and worked all the way through to 1200 grit. You can see as the sandpaper is getting finer, so are the bubbles that are being created as I sand. Once you feel that you've sanded enough and you've removed the roughness from the lifting lacquer, it's time to dry the panel. Always use your fingers to check and see if the edge is completely flush. If you can still feel it, it needs a bit more sanding. Now I'll thoroughly dry the area using an airline and some towels ahead of cleaning up and masking off. After it's been dried, I use some panel wipe to clean the area to make sure everything is free from grease and contamination. At this stage, I start to mask off anywhere I don't want the lacquer to go. For the first few areas I mask off, I use this specialist fine line masking tape. With areas such as around the badge on this car, I'll put the tape back to front as it were, so when I mask it leaves a soft edge for the lacquer to go into rather than a hard, clean cut edge. Once the first lot of tape has been done, it's time to put down the workshop paper just to make sure you're filling in any gaps. If you haven't got any specific masking paper, newspaper will do. Generally it pays to be quite picky with the masking, make sure there's no gaps, no rips, no tears, no spaces, etc. You'll also notice here that where I've keyed up the paint or scuffed up the paint isn't just around the area that had problems with lacquer. I've gone a fair few inches either side of this. You'll see why a little later on, but it's basically to help the lacquer spread and adhere uniformly around the wound. It's always good practice to give it one last clean after masking has been done, because the grease from your hands etc. does get on the paint whilst doing masking etc. And one more thing before laying down the new lacquer is to preheat the panel. I'm doing this in pretty terrible conditions. It's a cold day and I'm in the doorway of a workshop after it's just been raining, so there is damp in the air, so it pays to heat the panel as much as possible. You'll notice I'm also heating the panel with one hand with the heat gun and spraying lacquer with the other, sort of alternating. I'll lay down several coats of lacquer in graduating thicknesses, starting at a dusty layer all the way through to quite a heavy flow layer, all the while keeping heat on the panel and making sure that we don't create any runs. So now that the new lacquer's had time to harden overnight, it's time to wet flat it again. This time I'll just use 1000 and 1200 grit sandpaper, that's because I don't want to put any deep gouges in the new lacquer. After a final dry down, I'll just check that there are no low spots. In my case there was actually, so I had to hit another area with 1200 grit, as you'll see here, but after that another wipe down and it's good to go. So after a final dry down, it's time to remove any masking paper and tape that would get in the way of the machine polishing. In this case it's just the paper that's over the central badge. Now we're getting towards the final stages. It's time to machine polish the entire area, not just over the originally affected part of the lacquer, but everywhere that's been wet flatted and lacquered since. I'm using a medium grade compound to machine polish this here. That's because I will be giving it a top polish afterwards and I don't want to be too aggressive on the new lacquer or surrounding areas. After a wipe down with a microfiber towel, it's time for a final top polish using a foam applicator, and again final wipe down with a microfiber. Okay, and that's it. Here is the final result. If you've enjoyed watching this video and want to see more like it, please do comment and let me know what you want to see, and subscribe. Thank you very much.